Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from the 2024 Women's World Blitz Chess Championship. This was the final game from the finals. On the white end, Ju Wenjun playing against Lei Tingjie, two players very familiar with one another. They played in the 2023 Women's World Chess Championship match. Ju Wenjun winning that match. She is the reigning champion, won that match 6.5, 5.5. The task for the reigning champion in this game is mainly a defensive one, at least out of the opening stage. We're going to observe a gambit in this one, black pitching a pawn for some activity. I should note this was the 6th game they played in this event. Their first 4 games were all drawn. They went into tie breaks, another draw. And this 6th game was the only decisive one, the one that would crown Ju Wenjun the title. So we have a Queen's Gambit declined with c5, Tarrasch Defense. C takes d5 follows. And the most popular reply is E takes d5. But in this one we see C takes d4. This is the Schara Gambit. White's reply is queen a4 check, and only then queen takes d4. So why this roundabout way to recoup the pawn rather than queen takes d4? If you play queen takes d4, black has available this move knight c6. Can get away with that. This development with tempo based on the pinned d-pawn. By first inserting the check, white's trying to interfere with black's coordination. The reply in this game is bishop d7. If knight d7, the bishop doesn't have a move. You don't have to worry about the knight going to its favorite square. Black could actually blunder here with the move queen d7. Let me actually throw this position too as a pop quiz. Can you spot the winning move here for white? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, some of you may have been drawn to this idea to take on e6. Queen can't recapture because there's a pin here. But you would actually be losing if you tried this, because after the queen exchange and the move b5, whoops, this knight is out of squares. The winning move in case of this queen block in this position would be knight b5, which is setting up a deadly knight c7. The queen would be pinned, and the rook is ready to be toast. Knight a6 is there to defend. This is winning for white. Bishop d2 cuts out the checks on b4. Knight f3 with tempo. Eyeing up knight e5, kicking the queen off of this diagonal. Queen d7 would be a blunder in short in response to this check. In the game, it is bishop d7, queen takes d4. Nope, no knight c6 here. Pawn captures, queen captures pawn. In the game, knight c6 and then knight f6 is played. If knight f6 straight away, you could respond just how white does in this game, and that is to simply return the queen back home. Mission accomplished. Clear, pawn grab. Black has a lead in development. This is the struggle from here. Can black put this activity to work? From here, bishop c5, and a tiny move now by white, a3. This is a top move, taking away the b4 square from a couple minors, and in a way, the queen as well. I'll be highlighting a line where that shows up. Here's a couple ways white can go wrong here. First of all, this extra pawn white has, there may be a train of thought, hey, let me put that pawn to work for me. Let me have its presence be felt. Hang on. If you go as far as you can go with the pawn here, you go 2 steps, you're in trouble. There's knight g4, there's queen b6, big problems on the f2 square. With this bishop so actively posted, you have to be extra careful about going 2 steps with the e-pawn. e3, on the other hand, much more solid. That would tame the dark square bishop. This raises another question, though. Can white, in a way, have it all? You have the pawn right now. Can you also maybe get away with deploying the bishop outside of the pawn chain, throwing the knight in a pin, and only then playing e3? In this specific case, no. Let's see why. If white plays bishop g5 here, a perfect response would be queen b6, targeting f2 and the newly weakened b2 square. If I'm going to play it out just a few more moves, how does this look in the end? Not too great here for the structure, but computer still prefers black here. Best play with knight d5, queenside castles. Notice in this position, white does not have the move knight a5 with a fork, because black would be able to play to b4 with check, knight blocks, chop, chop, and thanks for the rook. Okay, in this game, we do not see bishop to g5, small move, a3, a6 played, and in this position, white goes with e3. White could go with bishop to g5 here. There's a big difference with the pawn on a3. So let's revisit this and see what in the world the difference is, making this same reply here, queen b6. Check this out, after e3, queen takes b2. In the end, we can now play to a4 and say, where are you going, queen? You are trapped. There is a fork here. All the squares are covered now from the queen. The only way to save the queen is to give up a piece now as black. Bishop check, chop, chop, you block with the queen. You're up the piece. White is completely winning here. So this pawn, this a pawn on a3, makes a big difference in this line. Now, why doesn't white go for bishop g5? What might hold a player back from posting the bishop in this active way and only then playing e3? Well, by playing e3, you are at least bringing it to a point where you are now only 2 steps away from castles. Playing bishop g5, you're not anywhere closer, I should say, to castling kingside. 3 steps away, black is only 1 step away. In this open position, sometimes maybe just having that difference be 1 can be an issue. So the emphasis in this game, we might say, is on king safety. I understand I'm playing e3. This bishop is going to kind of lag in development, but I want to make sure I get my king to safety. Black castles, bishop e2, queen e7, both sides castled now. Queen has a safe square. Rook's barreling down here, still has a lead in development. Where do we go with the dark square bishop is the question. Try and get it on the main diagonal. Bishop d2 in the game, it is bishop d2. If you try for b4, bishop b2, that's tactically flawed. Black can sacrifice if you play b4, chop, and in the end, hammer away at this pinned knight. It's not the end of the line. Bishop b2, another chop. All right, I think that's far enough. You cannot play rook a3. And this guy here is toast. So b4 in this position, no good. Bishop d2, knight e5, rook f to d1. White is playing on 3 ranks, very cagey, very solid. Still has that extra pawn. This is the correct rook, without a doubt, to put on d1 in the event this bishop needs to back off. To have the rook's eyes open, the rooks are in direct connection with one another. They're well coordinated. From here, bishop c6. The big difference that sticks out for me here are the bishops. These guys both pointing down towards the white king. These guys not so bright at the moment. White remains solid. White is still for choice. Queen f5, taking advantage of, we might say, the weakness of black's last move. No longer control over that square. There's a punch being thrown now. White would really like to get some exchanges here. That will ease the defensive task here for white. Black's reply is knight g6. Computer is more so a fan of the forward. It likes this knight e to g4. If white in this position responds with, let's say, h3, there can easily be a tactical idea now for black on this e3 or even f2 square. It likes g6 in this position. If you drift over here, you would have to be prepared to eventually sacrifice a knight to save your queen. And if you drift all the way back here to c2, this is where we could see a sacrifice with rook takes d2, followed up with knight takes e3. This is considered best. This knight is definitely poison. Queen would end up falling. All right, at the end of the day, we do not see this forward reaction to queen f5. We do not see this. Knight g6 here. Get that last piece working for us. Queen is kicked. This bishop having some fun here on this d7 square. Second time going to that square. Queen all the way back. Perfect coordination here for white. This is really the biggest issue, this dark square bishop. Everything else, well centralized. Get this bishop out of the way next. Still going to take some time before this one piece functions. From here, bishop goes to c6, bishop e1, knight g4. So white has to be very careful here. A good chunk of time spent at this stage by white. Ends up spotting the best move. White here plays knight d4. An accident can easily occur here on e3. So, for instance, if you try and scare the knight away here with h3, this is a winning idea, the sacrifice on e3. Big problems for the king. You go here, you're asking for the knight to be captured and then mate on the spot. You'd have to play king h2, the knight would still be captured, and your king is running for his life. This position here, bishop d6, may be tempting, and this is a funny line I tested out here. This would not be best. Black is winning here, but not with bishop d6 in this case. If you play bishop d6, watch how quickly the game can turn. You just remove that bishop and say, hey, where's your queen going? The king is fine on g3 here, and the black queen would end up trapped. Okay, one accurate move by black, however, this here being the accurate move, and black, well, the white king is going to be in a lot of hot water. Going to be moving forward. These guys will be excited to contribute. Rook moves. This is a winning attack here for Team Black. So, important here to respect this possible sacrifice on e3. It's black's, we might say black's biggest intersection square. We got 3 on that point. Knight d4 interferes with that, cancels out the dark square bishop, and unleashes an attack against the knight. Black's reply here is with bishop to d7. Now, in the computer's eyes, it is saying best is the following, but I honestly think it's probably better what black did here, because this top line by the engine, not really so appealing for a human. It's saying to go for these exact moves. And this last capture really, I mean, to invite this bishop, which has been a non-factor, into this post here on c3, it feels like it's instantly a best piece, gluing the queen side together. It says from here, rook a8, not at all human-like play. So the try in this one is with bishop d7. Let's get out of the way, and let's also defend the knight. Makes sense. From here, we have h3. No sacrifice on e3 here. In the game, the knight goes back to f6. If you take on e3, a couple times, this is a perfect reply, punching right back. So, in this one, after h3, knight f6, bishop f3, white is improving, slow and steady. Light square bishop all of a sudden now better than this guy. Not a fun move. The worst is in the past now for team white. White's on the offensive at this stage. Pieces improving, nice forward replies here. We're getting some exchanges in. Bishop takes, knight follows. Rook takes bishop. Bishop f5, easy enough to get out of the pin. Knight takes, knight hits with check. Queen takes knight. And from here we have bishop to e4. Players both under a minute at this stage. Top in the computer's eyes, it's looking at this rook captures rook move, followed up with bishop c3. You take my queen, I take yours. Probably difficult to play in this way with so little time. You really have to work out some details, this here being one of the details. Pinning the pawn, there's still this as a threat, and bishop takes h3. Computer's still saying white is winning with this line, giving that pawn back. All right, much more simple reply after queen takes knight. Let's just offer a light square bishop exchange. In the end, we now work with an isolated pawn. And from here, bishop takes bishop is on board. So white really doesn't experience any problems after that. Has a decisive advantage after bishop captures on e4, and it's maintained throughout. Black's last try to complicate at this stage is with the move knight f4. Take the bishop, there would be a check, tracking down the rook, and there's even some fancy continuation I'll put on here if this top move was played, followed up with rook c5, for instance, insisting that black capture on e4 so you can be the recapturer, improving the queen. Yeah, some line like this. Here's a way you can go wrong as white. The pawn is attacked. All right, let's defend it. Well, black can actually still take on d4 and get the queen back based on this fork, get the pawn back in the end. All right, in this game, we do not see this knight improvement at this stage. It is bishop captures bishop. And just like this, everything is, at this point here, everything is better for white. Queen is better, rook is certainly better, and the bishop dominates the knight. And the extra pawn you have is a big one, a passed pawn. The name of the game from here, push it. Flight square for black. D pawn runs. Bishop rerouting to a fantastic diagonal. Rook ideally placed behind that passer. Perfect coordination here for white. No problems. Keep on pushing. Problem on b7. d7. Knight f4. Let's get out of any pin. Let's not allow knight takes h3 check. King h2. Simple enough. We have this covered. f5. Queen sticks around defending the king side. Knight e6. Bishop a5. Queen d5. A check. And then queen e4 is played here. There isn't much else you can do. Queens are off at this stage. And one final move. Promotion. And black resigns. So a nice little example here for defensive play. Opponent pitching a pawn for this activity. White remains solid throughout. No great deficiencies. Some tactical ideas that were nearby on e3. They were addressed in a good way, and the game quickly turned in white's favor. Improving one piece after another, and it was smooth sailing from there. Anyhow, what are your thoughts on this one? Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.